Hi everyone, I'm Dr.Animaction. Welcome to the first in another new type of video that I'm doing that's kind of a take on my top 10s, top 5s type things, which, yeah, I know I haven't done in a while. But in kind of that similar style, this is going to be a ranking of insert animation-oriented topic here. Also, much like my Dr. Animaction and Friends Top 5 Christmas Specials video that I did a little while ago, this one is going to be an unscripted series, where I make a set of notes for myself and then I just kind of wing it. So I hope you liked that one, because it's going to be more of the same. I wanted to do this because a lot of my other series are kind of specifically focused, deep dive, retrospective-y type things, and let's be honest, lists kind of attract more attention here on YouTube. Lists, countdowns, rankings, they're those nice single setting, kind of easily digestible pieces of content that reach a wider audience. So if you're part of that wider audience who's just checking me out for the first time, then welcome and take a look at my other videos, because I've got some other stuff that you might find interesting. If you're one of my returning viewers, then as usual, welcome back. I absolutely appreciate you being here. Before we jump into the video, I just wanted to mention that I have a handful of new designs that I'm going to be putting up on Etsy here in the next week, and I think they're pretty great, so make sure you go over there and check them out. And I also plan on publishing a set of short stories that I've written in a small anthology on Kindle, so check that out over on Amazon maybe next week or so. And if you like that, hey, go look at my other book too. Lastly, before we get started, don't forget that I've got a Discord server where we do a lot of interesting and fun stuff, including discussions on pretty much every geeky topic you could ever want, an ongoing trivia quiz, and some various other things that you might find interesting. Go ahead and check us out there at the link in the description below. And now, without more babbling on my part, let's go ahead and get into the ranking. Today, we'll be looking at all of the masks from the M.A.S.K animated series from 1986. This ranking is going to be based on their power set only, not anything to do with how they look or how often they were used in the series, but what they were capable of. I'm only going to be looking at the masks that actually made an appearance on the animated series, but once I'm done, we'll take a look at the handful that only appeared in toy form as well. So, come along with me as we take a look at the various masks from M.A.S.K, and let me know what you think of the rating and your own opinions in the comments below. Now, on to the ranking. So, believe it or not, we'll be looking at 36 different masks in this video, because there were 36 over the run of the animated series. Granted, a lot of those made their first appearances during M.A.S.K Racers, which were episodes 66 through 75, and a lot of fans kind of dismiss out of hand, but they were there nonetheless, so we're going to count them. And starting us off at the absolute bottom of the list is Lester the Lizard Sludge and his mask, Mudslinger, which throws mud balls. And for those of you who don't know and didn't realize, yeah, all of the M.A.S.K operatives and all of the bad guys actually had code names like G.I. Joe. In fact, they actually started using them in the M.A.S.K Racer series, though by that time it was a little late. Plus, in that series, they took their masks off in front of Venom, so really, they didn't even need the code names, but I digress. So Mudslinger here does exactly what I said. It throws mud balls. You essentially have a mask with the power of anybody standing on wet dirt. Yeah, not much else to say about it. It's kind of terrible, and it gets number 36. For number 35, we have one of Matt Tracker's masks that appeared during the M.A.S.K Racers, which was Shroud. Shroud's ability was to generate a smoke screen. So, nothing more than what any guy with a smoke grenade would be able to do. It wasn't kind of a fancy smoke screen, it wasn't like radar impenetrable, it was just a cloud of smoke. And technically, it came out of a nozzle on his shoulder, not even his mask. And really, what's up with that bandana? All around, not a great mask, so 35 it is. 34 is another Matt Tracker mask, one of the originals, and actually the central focus of the M.A.S.K icon, Ultra Flash. Ultra Flash, besides looking stupid, which I know I said was not a part of this ranking, and it's not, all Ultra Flash can do is make a bright light. So, not even as effective as a flashbang, because it doesn't come with the bang. What we've got here is essentially a really bright flashlight. The end. 34. So number 33 goes to one of the newer M.A.S.K characters in the series, and one who's, let's say, problematic with both his name and his theme. It's Chief Nevada Rushmore's, Chief's his code name, M.A.S.K Totem. Not only does this thing look kind of also dumb, but its power is to spew out miniature, totem poles. Nothing troublesome about that. Moving on. So this guy basically has the power of someone throwing a handful of Legos in front of somebody else walking barefoot. Yeah, it's annoying, and it might cause a little trouble, but it's nothing you can't just mostly ignore as you continue doing what you're doing. Oh, and I know I didn't mention it, but Matt's codename in M.A.S.K was Hunter. Anyway, 32 goes to another newer character, Floyd Birdman Malloy, and his mask, Buckshot. So yeah, this guy essentially wore a big BB gun, because that's all his mask could do. Fire ball bearings out of, again, a shoulder socket. These ball bearings could pop tires and generally annoy M.A.S.K agents, but that was really about it. Otherwise, the mask was generally worthless. So, yeah, it stays down here at 32. 31 is another problematic name. They went through a whole phase here where they had characters who were named and codenamed and assigned masks that were the most stereotypical descriptions of the origins of that character ever, and much like Chief. This one, though, went to Boris the Tsar Bushkin, who was M.A.S.K's new Russian recruit. His mask was called Comrade, and it fired sparkly red stars that could disorient and blind people. So, big bad Russian guy, his power was sparkles. I don't even know how to make it sound any cooler than that. It was sparkles. 31's about as high as I can get him. And so now, in the number 30 position, we have Ace Falcon Riker, who had a mask called Ricochet. Ricochet fired energy boomerangs that could cut things, and didn't really come back. They just kind of dissipated because they were energy. So, kind of a laser gun that went in an arc. Yeah, I don't have anything else on this one. 29, he makes it up here. That's about it. The next two masks actually belong to the same character, Sly Wrecker Rax. Sly was one of the original Venom members, and honestly, both masks he got through the series pretty much did the same thing, so I'm going to give them 27 and 28 respectively. His original mask, Stiletto, fired darts. He could use these to kind of pin people to surfaces and poke things, but that's about it. So, when given the chance to upgrade, he upgraded to a new mask called Sawblade that looked pretty much exactly like Stiletto, but instead of firing darts, fired tiny circular saw blades. So essentially it had a similar capability of what Stiletto had, but he lost the ability to pin people like he had with darts. All he could do was kind of cut things. So, honestly, a bit of a downgrade there. At 26, we have Dusty Powderkeg Hayes and his new mask, Vacuum. Vacuum looked exactly like Dusty's original mask, but it traded that mask's power for the ability to generate a vacuum-type force that sucked things into it. Little things. Not like super powerful, he wasn't making black holes or anything. Essentially, it was just a vacuum. I probably wouldn't have even ranked it this high, but really, look what I put below it. So, yeah, Dusty gets 26 here. Next, we have one of Miles Wolf Mayhem's later masks called Flexor. Flexor was the mask he wore when he teamed up with his brother Maximus during the Racers series. And this one generated a rubberized force field thing, or bouncy ball that floated in midair. Honestly, I don't know what it generated. Some kind of a rubber field that things would bounce off of. It was not powerful, and it didn't disable the vehicles that ran into it because they safely bounced away. It was, at most, an annoyance. So, yeah, Miles' weakest mask, and it goes way down here. Okay, well, I actually lied about that. Flexor is not Miles' worst mask. I just kind of missed one as I was reading through my list. His worst mask actually goes at number 29, and it was his second mask called Python. With a cool name like that, you'd think it would have a cool power, but what it actually did was shoot strings. Yeah, little energy strings that would wrap around people and annoy them. Not tie them up, not disable them, just kind of get in their way and be a nuisance. People could actually grab them and pull them off and throw them away. I don't know why he would have used this instead of Viper, but he did. And, well, it was just generally terrible. So that's my actual 29th entry, and it moves Flexor into 25th. So I'll correct all that in my summary slide at the end. But number 24 is also a string-based mask, and it's Vanessa Warfield's Whip. Vanessa is one of only 2 M.A.S.K characters who didn't get said codename that I was talking about earlier. She's just Vanessa Warfield. And she's also one of the only 2 characters that didn't get a M.A.S.K upgrade throughout the series. But anyway, she had Whip.
Hey Dad, that's a cool whip.
And it could create an energy whip, which you could wrap around people and throw them around and grab things with it. But being a whip, it had a limited range and grabbed people, so I can't imagine it caused that much pain. It was kind of a limited use M.A.S.K. I didn't see anything cool enough in the series about that to want to put it higher than 24. So for 23 and 22, you can pick the order. I really don't care. But it's Blaster and Blaster 2, which belonged to Hondo Stryker McLean. You may remember that Stryker was a half-face M.A.S.K that left all of Hondo's jaw and lower face exposed and just shot kinetic energy beams. Actually, my bad. I think it shot heat beams, so it was more of a melt things M.A.S.K. His upgrade, if you can call it that, was Blaster 2, and it became this crystalline structure, weird-looking M.A.S.K that did cover his whole face, but did not at all match his motif. And worst of all, it didn't do anything else that Blaster 1 didn't already do. So, can you really call it an upgrade? Not so much. In fact, I'd call it a downgrade. So let's go ahead and put Blaster 2 at 23 and Blaster at 22. At least they were relatively powerful with their energy beams, but that was all they did. Shooty shooty pew pew. Speaking of which, I put at number 21, Dusty Powder Keg Hayes' Backlash, which was one of the original M.A.S.Ks as well. Backlash, much like Blaster, just fired energy blasts. That's it. Nothing special, nothing new. This one was the kinetic energy that I was talking about with Blaster, but honestly, one over the other, they functionally did the exact same thing in the cartoon, so they can all get grouped right here in the same area. At number 20, I've put Brad Chopper Turner's M.A.S.K from the M.A.S.K Racer series, Eclipse, which generates a smokescreen. But this one is actually way better than Shroud because it doesn't just generate a normal, everyday, set something on fire, throw a grenade, create a smokescreen. It creates a dark vortex thing that not only does it block out any vision through it, but it kind of disorients anybody that enters it, kind of like Cloak from the Cloak and Dagger comic book. At least that's what it looks like in the cartoon. So it gets a way better position than Shroud, right up here at number 20. So at number 19, we get another M.A.S.K from the Racer series. I don't know why, the Racer's M.A.S.Ks, they just kind of all seem to suck. That's why this bottom half of the list is pretty heavy with them. But this one is Buddy Clutch Hawk's M.A.S.K Ditcher, which could dig holes in the ground. Honestly, you didn't see a lot of these M.A.S.Ks in action during Racers. They didn't seem to use them nearly as much as they did in the original series. But Ditcher here did exactly what I said. It dug holes. And I think I got to see it once, maybe twice in action, and basically it made big potholes that the enemy would drive into and almost immediately drive out of. Seemed like it might have had some promise with its ability to modify the landscape, but we never saw it used to any of its full potential. Next up, we have Alex Megabyte Sector's second M.A.S.K, Disruptor. Disruptor looked exactly like Alex's first M.A.S.K, just a slightly darker color scheme, which is kind of the same thing that was happening with Dusty's Vacuum M.A.S.K, because it looked exactly like Backlash, just with a darker color scheme. But Alex's new M.A.S.K, Disruptor, was a signal jammer. It could block out any radio or telecommunications or radar signal within, I guess, whatever direction he was looking. I don't know, it was pretty vaguely defined, and honestly, he didn't use it a lot. But signal jamming is a pretty useful capability for a combat organization, so I put him up here at number 18. For number 17, we get Julio Doc Lopez, and his M.A.S.K, Streamer. So Streamer here was a versatile multi-function M.A.S.K that could do actually a number of things. All of those things involved firing some kind of gooey material or something, but he could fire glue, fire suppressant foam, oil slicks, that sort of thing. And similar to those M.A.S.Ks that I mentioned earlier, which fired things from a shoulder-mounted unit, this one fired out of nozzles stuck on his chest. So was it really the M.A.S.K? I'll leave it to you to decide. But I don't think it was all that useful. Still better than everything that came before it, but we'll keep it down here at 17. Next up, we have Ace Falcon Riker's second mask from the Racer series, which was called Cruise Control. This mask could take control of other vehicles. You'd think in a series like M.A.S.K, where everybody depends on operating a vehicle, that this would be a game changer. But no, we never see it used that way. We do see it used once to grab Bullet and lift it over a gap, which doesn't really seem to fit with its power set. I don't know, we didn't see it actually get to take over any vehicles much in the series, but that was theoretically what it was supposed to do. And had it actually worked that way, it would have deserved being up here at 16. At 15, we get one of the other original masks of the series, with Torch, which belonged to Cliff Blaster Dagger. Torch, as you may have been able to guess by the name, acted like a torch, or maybe a flamethrower if you prefer. Either way, it shot fire out of a nozzle above the eye slots, so good luck actually seeing anything while you're using the mask. This one had really just kind of a wide area of flame that came out of it, so you couldn't use it for fine work or detail work. You could just blob fire at people. I mean, that's definitely got its place, but not really one of the more useful masks in the series. So we're going to stay down here at 15 with it. For number 14, we have one of the newer members of the M.A.S.K unit, specifically Jacques Trailblazer Lafleur and his mask Mirage. So Mirage could generate an invisibility field, which is kind of cool, but apparently it could generate holograms too, because we saw that in a couple episodes as well. But what I'm really kind of focused on here is the invisibility aspect of it. What a super useful ability, except he drove a monster truck. So it doesn't really matter how invisible you make it, it's still a monster truck, and it's not like the thing had any sound dampening capabilities. If he were some kind of ninja or a special operative and kind of operated on foot more often than not, then invisibility would be a great asset for him. As the driver of a monster truck, probably not so much, so I couldn't justify putting him much higher than number 14. At 13, we have Brad Chopper Turner's original mask when he was the pilot of Condor, Hocus Pocus. Hocus Pocus was purely a hologram generator. It made super realistic, super animated holograms. He could pretty much make whatever he wanted to make and make it do whatever he wanted to make it do. Which I always kind of wondered, were the original masks connected straight into their brains? All they had to do was think about it. Whatever the case, that's what Brad's was. Unfortunately, he didn't use it all that much throughout the series, and in fact would often rely more on his antimatter cannon that was mounted on Condor than he would his mask. But there were a couple of times it saved the day, and the idea of creating pretty much whatever he could think about was pretty cool, so yeah, I'm going to go ahead and put him here at 13. But at 12, we have Miles Mayhem's original mask, Viper. So this is his classic first mask, and its ability was to fire some kind of acid or poison. I think it might have been both, depending on the situation he wanted to use it in. But mostly what we saw him do with it was fire a stream of acid that he could use with some fine control to either open containers or cut holes in surfaces or things like that. So a lot better than what we had with Cliff's torch mask, because he had a fine touch that he could use to do detailed work. Never actually saw him use it against another operative, and when he did, he never actually hit anybody, so I can't say much about the poison aspect. But if the mask had poison on top of that acid capability, then I think it deserves to be down here at 12. Well, we're almost to the top 10, so the last entry before we get to that is going to be Nash Goon Gory's mask Powerhouse, which was often referred to in the animated series as Samson. Bit of a biblical reference there. But Powerhouse was a mask that granted its wearer super strength, which, well, I don't know, in most situations I think super strength is kind of a universally useful skill. So that's why I put it so high on the list. There were really no downsides to it, like range or having to target anything. It was simply a physical modification to the wearer, which had absolutely no adverse effects and no negative aspects, in my opinion. So yeah, super strength. Good enough to get him up to number 11. So now we're entering into the top 10, and at number 10, I put Gloria Baker's Aura. Aura was a force field generator, and a pretty powerful one at that. It was also one of the better kind of looking masks. Not that that has any impact on where I put it on the list, but just wanted to mention that. So Aura generated energy shields that could pretty much deflect anything or encapsulate anything, which, Well, that's pretty useful. But much like Vanessa, Gloria also never got a codename assigned, nor did she get any mask upgrades. Well, in the series. She did get one in the toys, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But as far as masks go, Aura was the ultimate defense, and as such, I think it deserves a place this high on the list. You know what's cooler than defense, though? Elemental manipulation. And our next few masks actually deal with that power specifically. Starting with number 9, Allie Lightning Bombay's Vortex. Vortex was a mask that does exactly what it sounds like and generated whirlwinds or miniature tornadoes. These things were pretty powerful, and Allie could actually use them to throw around other masked vehicles, or catch people who were falling, or even to surround himself and burrow into the ground. It was a pretty versatile mask, and he used it a lot during racers, more than probably most of the other masks that we saw, and was powerful and cool enough to earn him a spot up here at number 9. Although, yes, it did look stupid. But number 8 goes to an elemental power that's a little cooler than wind, and it's Matt Tracker's third mask, Lava Shot. Lava Shot made a handful of appearances in the cartoon, but he never used it. So we can't actually say what its power would have done, but notionally, its power was to shoot streams of lava.
Liquid hot magma.
Which I can only imagine would be rather destructive. Thinking of all the use cases where this mask might have been employed, I can definitely say it would have been a powerful asset. I just wish we'd gotten to see it in action in the cartoon. It did look cool though. Way better than Ultra Flash. But coming up next for our elemental control masks was Maximus Maxi Mayhems, who was Miles Mayhem's brother in the Racer series, in case you didn't know. But his mask, which was called Deep Freeze and could generate cold beams and ice walls. I've always had a soft spot for Iceman from the X-Men, so this mask was pretty cool. It could do some interesting things, and so of course he very rarely used it. But again, if we were to assume what it can do, the extent of its capabilities, it seems like it would be one of the more powerful masks out there, and one of the more versatile. So I went ahead and put him up here at number 7. Now we have the last mask before breaking into my personal top 5. That mask, for number 6, goes to Bruno Mad Dog Shepherd and his mask, Magna Beam. So this one essentially generated magnetic fields and controlled metal, which, again, you'd think would be a pretty useful ability against a whole other enemy team that used nothing but vehicles. Metal vehicles. Magnetically metal vehicles. But honestly, he didn't use it like that much. He used it on other sorts of metal. So, I guess, hooray for bad guys being idiots, because that's all I can think of why he didn't just use it to smash masked vehicles together all day long. In a more capable operator's hands, though, you can probably imagine how useful this would be, especially if you're an X-Men fan and have seen anything that Magneto can do. But that wasn't the case in the cartoon, so number 6 for its potential, not for its implementation. And now we hit our top 5. The 5th entry of which belongs to Alex Megabyte Sector, with his mask Jackrabbit. Not only was this kind of a cool looking mask with that cowl design and the exposed, well, I guess it was just Alex wanting to show off his goatee, but it granted the wearer flight, so what's not cool about being able to fly? Granted, we didn't see him use it a lot, and when we did see him use it, it was more of that My Secret Identity flight. You guys remember that show with Jerry O'Connell, and he flew around with aerosol cans? Whatever. It didn't look like he'd fly super fast. He was generally just kind of floating around, lifting people. He didn't use it for much. If it were a mask that granted flight like we imagine flight, definitely number 5. If it was limited to just him hovering, it might not deserve this position. But I prefer to think that it does what I would have wanted it to do in the 80s, so we'll leave it here. Number 4 was the original mask of Buddy Clutch Hawks, which was called Penetrator. Not in that context. Get your minds out of the gutter. What this mask could do was allow him to turn intangible and walk through solid surfaces. That's really overpowered. I mean, we saw him use it against Sly at one point and just ignore his darts from Stiletto and just let him pass right through. We saw him walk through a cave wall and save Matt by hooking it into his vehicle and driving the whole thing intangibly through a mountain. It's just a ridiculously overpowered mask, and as such wasn't utilized that often because, let's face it, would have made him unstoppable. And honestly, if you're able to make that sort of mask, why wouldn't you make that mask for everyone? But yeah, super powerful mask, super useful and versatile, and super kind of unseen. Based on what it could do, again, number 4. Speaking of super overly powerful, number 3 goes to Calhoun Cowboy Burns, who was one of the later additions to the mask operatives and wore the mask Gulliver. This one allowed the wearer to both grow and shrink whatever object he used it on. So basically, an Ant-Man mask, which, holy cow, think of all the uses. Not that he really applied it for any of those in the show. He mostly just, hey, let me shrink this big thing down so we can transport it easier and then make it big again when it gets where it's going. But oh, the potential. There were a lot of instances of wasted potential in this show, but let's be honest, what could you really do to show how powerful these masks were and still keep things kid-friendly? Not a whole lot. But imagining what this mask was capable of and could have done in a broader audience setting, yeah, this one was a beast and deserves to be up here at number 3. But at number 2, and I don't have the numbers to back this up, I should really go through the show and collect those. So this is just me throwing out an anecdotal observation. But number 2 was the most widely used mask in the show, and it was Bruce Magic Sato's anti-gravity generating mask, Lifter. Lifter basically made Bruce a telepath, or telekinetic, I guess, allowing him to lift whatever he was looking at, regardless of size, regardless of weight, regardless of anything other than the fact that it was sitting right in front of him, as though it were completely weightless, and maneuver it through the air to his heart's content. And he did that in nearly every episode. Bruce saved every other member of the team at some point or another using Lifter. Saved almost every masked vehicle at some point or another using Lifter. Saved every MacGuffin the masked team was after at some point or another using Lifter. It was the masked team's get-out-of-jail-free mask, and utilized more than anything else in the series. Can you blame them? It was super powerful and had so many applications that I would have been using it all the time too. So the combination of all those things puts it up here at number 2. And it doesn't hurt that it looked pretty decent as well. But for the number 1 slot, how can I give it to anything other than the Deus Ex Machina, which is, of course, Matt Hunter Tracker's original mask, Spectrum. So what could Spectrum do, you ask? Well, that depends. What did the episode need it to do? It could generate light in various spectrums and allow the user to see in various spectrums, which sounds about right based on the name. But it could also generate a hang glider aura around Matt, allowing him to essentially fly. It could intercept energy and change the nature of that energy into whatever other kind of energy he wanted, which he did in one episode that saw Venom nearly destroying a city with an energy beam. But nope, Matt just looked at it and made it pure light, so it didn't hurt anybody. And it could also do, well, whatever it needed to do. The power set for this mask was honestly pretty poorly defined and left open-ended to whatever capabilities it needed to have. This was essentially a magic mask. So how can you not put something that can do, well, everything at number 1? And with that, we come to the end of the ranking for all of the masks that appeared in the animated series. However, as I mentioned earlier in the video, there are a few that only appeared in toy form, so let's take a quick look at those and see if any of them belong on this list as well. Also, I'm not going to shove any of these other masks into the existing ranking that we already went through, but instead I'm just going to give a kind of high, low, middle-ish estimation of where they may fall in that ranking. So most of these actually came out in the M.A.S.K mission packs that were released as part of the toy series that just had a single figure and some equipment that went with them and a different mask for them, rather than coming with an entire vehicle. The first of these was another Matt Tracker figure, this time coming with a mask called Arrow. This mask came as part of the Jungle Challenge mission set and included both the mask and a jetpack for Matt. The mask itself fired lightning bolts, which doesn't really necessarily have much to do with arrows, but can say that it's probably going to be a rather powerful mask. So much like those other elemental masks that we talked about earlier, I'd put it fairly high on the list. But Matt makes a second appearance in the mission packs with the mission Coastal Patrol, and the new mask that came with it, Dolphin. Dolphin, however, wasn't nearly as powerful, and its only ability per the packaging was to emit sonic signals, kind of like a sonar. So sonar definitely has its purposes, but porpoises, dolphin. I amuse myself, probably more than I should. But anyway, sonar has its uses, but when you have a view screen and an actual line of sight to whatever your targets are underwater, it's slightly more limited. And this mask, well, had eye holes, so I don't know. Maybe it was good, maybe it wasn't, but I'd probably put it on the lower tier of the ranking. Bruce Sato also was released as part of another set, specifically a set called Rescue Mission, where he came with the mask Grasshopper. Grasshopper allowed Bruce to jump. Far, I guess. But come on, the guy had Lifter. Did he really need a mask that let him jump? I don't think so. Regardless of how high this one may have fallen on the ranking, nothing compared to Lifter. So let's just ignore it happened and keep moving forward. Moving forward specifically with Gloria Baker and her new mask called New Collider. There were actually several masks in the series called New, whatever the original mask's name was, and they were essentially the same mask that the drivers originally had, but they also had the ability to generate a digital clone, which was something that they used as part of the Racers thing and the Racers toy line, and allowed them to duplicate themselves for the vehicles that split into two parts. Well, Gloria had one in this toy line as well that was called New Collider, and it went with her new vehicle, the Lamborghini called Stingray. It didn't really have any other new powers that I could tell, it just made a clone. So this mask, pretty much the bottom of the barrel as far as the ranking goes. As evidence of how strong my memory is, I forget what I just called her Lamborghini, like moments ago, but whatever I called it, its actual name was Stiletto, so my bad. But lastly, for the non-animated series appearing masks, we have one for Miles Mayhem that came out in the action pack Venom's Revenge called Ripper, and its ability was to shred metal.
He's not so tough.
Impossible. It was a sardine.
No insight into whether or not it could shred anything else, but it could definitely shred metal, which again, cars, jets, various vehicles, you'd think would be an endlessly useful ability for a bad guy to have in this universe, but it never made the cartoon, and we never really saw it in action. If it had made the cartoon, I'd imagine it'd make it pretty high on the ranking. But alas, it wasn't meant to be, and so it just gets to hang out here in limbo and be a footnote in the rest of our ranking. Hi everyone, Editing Animaction here. I just wanted to pop in and say that while I was editing this video, I discovered a few other masks. Firstly, the adventure packs had a second series of 4 more packs, one of which had 2 different variations. I won't be talking about them because all of the masks included in them were the original masks the characters came with. They were just recolors. But there was one that had a couple new unique masks, and that was the gimmicky playset Laser Command. Laser Command came with both Matt Tracker and Miles Mayhem, each of which included a brand new mask. Because the playset was one of those that used IR lights to make actions happen in each of the vehicles, the mask that the figures came with also had IR-related functions. Matt's new mask, Lasertron, speeds up infrared laser rays, and Miles' new mask, Raynet, slows them down, or catches them. So essentially, Matt can make you get a sunburn faster, and Miles can protect you from one. Both masks have nothing to do with anything except the gimmick, so they would be at the bottom of the list. And that brings us to the end of the first of these ranking videos. I have a whole metric ton of these that I've already thought up topic-wise, and plenty of them that I could do over the next however long it takes me to do more videos, which hopefully isn't going to be very long. Let me know what you think of the format and the video style in the comments, and if you all like them, I've got plenty more due down the road. But otherwise, like I said earlier, take a look at the new designs coming to Etsy this week, the new stories coming to Kindle, and any other thing you want to look at in the description below. Also, don't forget to come check out the Discord. There's a lot of cool people over there. We talk about a lot of cool stuff, and it's just generally fun. But beyond that, don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you can, share this video out with other geeks that might be interested. So on that note, hopefully you'll see another video in the personnel office coming pretty soon, and I'm starting to move forward with the 90s in film. No promises, that'll come out when it comes out. I appreciate y'all watching. As always, stay tuned and stay tuned, as in cartoons. Later.